My parents, 65 female and 67 male, are livid because I'm not allowing them to see my daughter after they spanked her. Am I the a-hole? For context, I live abroad, and this is only the second time my family has met my daughter. My wife, 28 female, and I, 28 male, flew down for the holidays, as well as an extended vacation, so our 3-year-old daughter could see my home country, Brazil, and have a fun, different experience. We spent New Year's at my parents' house with my extended family. Everything seemed to be going well until the 3rd, when my wife and I left the house to run some errands and left my daughter alone with my parents. My daughter is a very smart girl. She loves talking. She's sweet, but opinionated, and we like to encourage that. We want her to know that her voice and thoughts matter and that we are there to listen. My parents, however, seem to disagree. While we were out, my mom called me and told me that my daughter was being disrespectful. I asked her what she was doing, and she told me that my daughter was arguing about the cartoon they had picked for her to watch and wanted to watch something else they didn't know. I understand that we don't always have to give kids what they want, but I didn't see the harm in that, especially because I don't exactly trust whatever they chose for her due to certain ideological differences we have. So I sent her a link to a YouTube series my daughter likes to watch and asked her to put that on instead and tell her that mom and dad would be back soon to talk to her. Next, my mom told me she had already taken care of it. I was confused as to what that meant, and she followed up by saying that she had spanked my daughter to teach her not to argue. Needless to say, I was furious. I hung up, told my wife, and we immediately dropped everything and drove back. We do not spank. We never have and never will. As someone who was spanked a lot for unnecessary and stupid reasons, I understand that it does not work and only harms the child. And yes, I had mentioned this to my parents before. We had a pretty ugly argument when we arrived, but I kept my position clear. They did not have the right to do that, and I would not be taking it lightly. My parents are very strict in their ways, and they refuse to apologize or even acknowledge that what they did was wrong, if not for the spanking itself, then at least for doing it without my permission. Long story short, we packed up the same day and left. I called the hotel in the next city we were visiting and booked a room earlier than planned. It was about a week before we were originally going to leave. I made it very clear to my parents that I didn't want to hear any more excuses. I sent them some articles on parenting and child abuse and told them I wouldn't be talking to them or allowing them to talk to or see my daughter again until they had read them and contacted me to apologize and acknowledge that what they did was horrible and wrong. Fast forward to now. It's been over 2 weeks, and all I've heard from them are enraged complaints about how they knew what they were doing because they did it to me and I turned out okay, so it must work. About how I'm being ridiculous and unfair because they were only trying to help, and about how they don't get to see my daughter often since I live abroad. I've received calls from my sister, who is a lot like them, defending them, from my sister's husband, from his father, from 2 of my uncles, my father's brothers, and even from some of my cousins. To put it shortly, everyone is saying that I should forgive them and forget about it because they had good intentions and don't get to see my daughter often, so I'm being unfair. We had plans to spend a few more days with my parents in early February before our flight home, but I canceled them. I still don't think I'm wrong, but I can partly see their reasoning behind the "they don't get to see her often" point, though I'm still very much not inclined to yield. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the update. What's their problem? They don't see her often, so they think they can hit her? Besides, they haven't offered a single apology. They're completely convinced they're in the right, so they'll do it again. And they've enlisted the whole family behind them. A family whose capacity for self-reflection is clearly lower than the IQ of a mussel in marinara sauce. You're not in the wrong. I think they don't want to apologize because that's how they raised me. And if they do apologize and admit they were wrong, it won't be just for this instance, but for the way they acted for decades before this. They're too proud for that. The rest of my family is very much like that too. Your child, your rules. And by the way, they haven't seen this child since she was born, and their idea of bonding with the kid they've never really met before is to hit her. Sounds like a dumb way to develop a relationship with a toddler. Unfortunately, they don't know much about developing healthy relationships, or they believe they have authority over her, which I'm trying to make clear they don't. Go no contact with all of them. Good riddance. I've been talking to my wife about this. We were staying with them mostly to humor them, if I'm being fully honest. We hadn't seen them since our daughter was a newborn, and they had been asking incessantly for us to visit. It wasn't even the main objective of our trip. I think it might be best to cut our losses if we do. Now for the update. This post got a lot more attention than I was expecting. I showed it to my wife, and we decided to block everyone who has been calling or texting us about the situation. We'll enjoy the rest of our vacation in peace. Once we're back home, I'm going to call my parents and explain to them one last time why what they did is unacceptable. I will not be allowing them to be alone with my daughter ever again, and unless I can see for sure that they've learned and changed, they will not be seeing her at all. I'll keep them muted and contact them only if something urgent happens in the family. I've also seen some comments debating spanking kids, and I believe this is a discussion we as humans shouldn't even be having anymore. Spanking, or any kind of physical punishment, is abuse, and there's never any excuse to resort to violence. If a child is too young to reason with, they won't understand why you're hitting them. If they are old enough to reason with, then reason with them. Next story. Am I the a-hole for going no contact with my daughter due to my wife? My daughter, who is 26, has always hated my wife. My wife and I are both 43. My wife came into my daughter's life when she was already an adult. My daughter tries very hard to taunt my wife into a fight, and my wife just ignores it. My wife and my ex are good friends, and my ex cut off our daughter 2 years ago for her behavior, and because, according to my ex, my daughter is a narcissist. Her sister is a therapist and has told me this too, but I was always hesitant to cut her off. My daughter took my wife's phone and wrote a text message to a random person who ended up being my daughter impersonating another person. She created this entire conversation with herself to make it look like my wife was having an affair, and then told me that my wife was cheating on me, which was a complete lie. My wife found out and did not make a big deal out of it, but she made it clear that she wanted nothing to do with my daughter anymore, while also saying she would never stop me from being in her life. Now my daughter's getting married to her longtime boyfriend and did not invite my wife. It's her wedding, so she can do what she wants. However, I told her that my wife and I are a package deal, and it's common courtesy to invite a married couple. My wife and I had a daughter together last year, who is turning 1 soon. I never pressured my daughter to have a relationship with her sister, and she made it clear that she didn't want one. Now she's saying that if I don't come to her wedding without my wife, she's cutting me off. My ex-wife, her mother, told me that it's best if I just cut her off myself, and that it's stupid that I keep subjecting my wife to our daughter's behavior. I kind of agree, so we did just that. We have not had contact with her for 6 months now. Am I the a-hole for cutting off my daughter? Ex cut off our daughter 2 years ago for her behavior and because, according to my ex, my daughter was a narcissist. I don't doubt your wife, but this reads as two parents who had a daughter with a legitimate personality disorder and decided to cut her off in adulthood, rather than try to pursue professional diagnosis or management of her troubling behavior. She has been in therapy for years. What's happened has happened though, and I am not willing to have her in my life. How do you force an adult daughter into getting help for something she doesn't see as a problem? OP does not indicate that the daughter has acted this way all her life. The story starts with OP saying she was already an adult. So, armchair psychologist, how exactly should OP and his ex have approached this? Do you know something the rest of us don't about treatment options? She has acted like this all her life. Sorry if that was unclear. She has also been in therapy for years. We cannot force her to keep going anymore, and her actions have led to this. I would not take this from a stranger, so it does not make sense for me to take it from my daughter just because I'm her father. You're the a-hole. She doesn't have to invite your wife. It's clear you've chosen your wife over your child. However, it's your right to choose not to go to the wedding. Mind you, my daughter met my wife when she was 24. She is not a child anymore. She knew what she was doing and made an adult choice to make it seem like my wife was cheating. I would not take this from a stranger, so it makes no sense for me to take it from my daughter just because she is blood. I have chosen my wife and my minor child over an adult who decided to act like this. I will not go to her wedding. Next story. Am I the a-hole for being in my granddaughter's life despite my daughter-in-law? I'm a 55-year-old widowed man, and my oldest son, who is 32, is a stupid bastard. He has 4 kids with 3 different women, a 14-year-old son he had at 18, 2 daughters with his wife, a 2-year-old toddler and a baby who is a few months old, and another toddler daughter who is a year and a couple of months old, whom he had from an affair while his wife was pregnant with their first daughter. Yes, I know he's a stupid, cheating bastard, and I don't condone that at all. I would have supported his wife if she had chosen to divorce him, but she didn't. She stayed and had yet another baby with him. She's fine with my grandson, but she wants the entire family to act like his other daughter doesn't exist, and I refuse to do that. She's still my granddaughter, affair kid or not. I visited her and her mom in the hospital when she was born. My son wasn't there. They live less than 30 minutes away from me, and I visit her a couple of times a year. Her mom doesn't have a problem with it. I love that little girl just like I love all my grandchildren. I get her presents for her birthday and for Christmas, just like I do for everyone else. My daughter-in-law hates this and says that my son paying child support is more than enough, and that I shouldn't show the kids that she's equal to them. But she is. Now I'm not invited to their house, and they won't let me see my granddaughters, and it hurts so much. But I still won't abandon my other granddaughter, because it's not her fault how she was born. She's a pretty little doll, and she lights up whenever I come to visit her, which happens more now since I can't visit the others. I've even become friends with her mom's family, especially her dad. We just like chilling with our granddaughter. Am I in the wrong here? Not the a-hole. I applaud you for not giving in to your daughter-in-law after she withheld your other granddaughters from you. I get that it's hard for her that there's living proof that your son cheated on her, but the kid can't help that she was born out of an affair. You choose to be in the lives of all of your grandchildren. Your daughter-in-law chooses to keep her daughters from seeing their grandfather. There's only one a-hole here, and that's her, plus your son for cheating. My other granddaughter knows me and loves me, and she lights up whenever I come to visit her. I don't want to take that away from her, and I don't want to miss out on her life. I'll only stop seeing her when I die. Your granddaughter is lucky to have you, OP. Your daughter-in-law is the a-hole for taking out her anger on you and your granddaughter. And it's all because she can't punish her cheating husband. She needs to go to therapy. I know what I'll do. To suppress my feelings about my husband's betrayal, I'll live in denial about the impact of his actions, and then I'll force everyone to focus on me and my kids, and we can all live in blissful, deliberate ignorance of the fact that there's a whole human being that is part of my family. Why can't this old man see that? Please make sure that your will is squared up for this child, and put barriers in place to protect her, because your son and his terrible wife will absolutely try to stiff her on your assets. OP can put everything in trusts for the grandkids and, in his will, include a clause specifically stating that he leaves absolutely nothing to his son for being a philanderer, and specifically leave nothing to the daughter-in-law for cutting off the relationship with the children as punishment for OP keeping a relationship with all of his grandchildren, while she refused to hold her cheating husband accountable. Then make the trusts for the withheld grandchildren contingent upon conditions of your choosing, like tuition paid directly to the school or payments made directly to institutions, not cash. Not the a-hole for keeping contact with your grandchild. Last story. Am I the a-hole for turning in my mother and giving my stepfather's ashes to my stepsister? When my stepdad died, my family and I picked up our lives and moved 5 hours away to help my mom. She didn't make enough money to keep her house, car, etc. without him. When we first got there, she dove into alcoholism and did not hold up her part of the deal or her contributions. We discussed this with her, and she seemed to snap back into reality and start to sober up. All seemed well. Fast forward 6 months to a year later, and she started going out and not coming home for a day or two. Whatever, she's a grown adult, in her 60s, and we assumed she just didn't want to be around the chaos of grandkids. When she was home, she still seemed fine. Fast forward another 2 years, and we found out that she wasn't only doing drugs, but was also selling them sometimes in our home. She did this while my youngest was between 3 and 5 years old. When we found everything out, we turned her into the police. After doing so, I decided she didn't deserve to keep my stepdad's ashes. If she had done all this while he was alive, he would have turned her in and kicked her out immediately. My stepsister stopped talking to me and my mom about 6 months after he died and ended up blocking us both on social media. I didn't know why, but I assumed it was just too painful for her to talk to us, especially about him. Well, after all of the nonsense with my mom, I found a way to reach out to her and give her his ashes. My mom was livid. When I gave my stepsister his ashes, she informed me that she blocked us because my stepdad wanted to be interred at Arlington Cemetery and we didn't respect those wishes. No one ever told me this, or I would have had it done ASAP. My stepsister is in the process of doing it now. Am I the a-hole? Edit. We tried to get her help several times, including offering to pay for rehab, and she refused. She said she could do it on her own and seemed like she was, but instead got deeper into it. Yes, we were living in her house, but we were paying for everything. Mortgage, utilities, maintenance, and all necessities. Not just for us, but for her as well, including personal hygiene products, laundry supplies, food, and gas for her car. She was basically an additional child who contributed nothing, not even chores. We also did not stay in the house. First because it wasn't ours, and second because we feared for our lives, as she was getting high on her own supply and owed whoever was above her a lot of money. We didn't take anything that was hers and also left a lot of our own belongings. Having his ashes interred at a national cemetery doesn't just happen, especially at Arlington. It took over a year for my friend to get her granddaughter's ashes interred at Fort Logan Cemetery in the Denver area. It's never too late to do this. Contact your nearest national cemetery for information. My stepsister knows what to do and is in the process of doing so. Thank you for the insight, though. Yeah, you way overstepped. No matter what your stepdad's wishes were, you didn't know that, so that's odd. His daughter did not take the time to come forward and tell you those wishes prior. I don't care what your mom was doing. That was her husband, and it was not yours to take. Definitely an a-hole. Stealing the ashes of her husband, living in her house, and being so unsympathetic to her needs as to push her out. Then claiming she was dealing drugs from her home where your kids had round-the-clock care, turning her into the police to finish off your conquest of all that was hers? Well played, a-hole. I don't believe anything you said about her. You have to be a troll. There's no other way you'd have the audacity to say a drug addict was providing round-the-clock care when she couldn't even care for her own house. Thank you. She was not providing round-the-clock care at all. She agreed to watch my youngest while I was working. I worked from home so I could help her at times as well, and usually made lunch for all three of us.